All right. Let's see. Okay, there it is. People are rolling in. Welcome. Welcome to our second session today. I can't believe this. These days go by so quick when we do things like this because they're so much fun. But just want to welcome everybody to the Travify Academy's Grow with Groups mini event. And we are on our second session here today with Jeff, who I'm going to introduce in just a couple minutes because I do want to share a little bit. If this is your first session joining us here today, like kind of what we're doing today, and then also how to get information for sessions that have happened already and then ones that are coming up as well. But really, goal of this event, we started realizing that groups, I mean, we've always known groups is a big thing. You know, it's a great market to get into, but I personally was starting to hear about it a lot more recently, even as we were getting ready to, look for experts and create this content. And so it really feels like the perfect time to start talking about this stuff. And we've done webinars in the past where we'll talk about group travel, but we just kind of stay at surface level. And so that's where we wanted to dedicate a day where we can get deeper into it with different, just different topics. So like today's topic, I'm super excited for this one because I know Jeff's going to share, what are they seeing in the industry? What are those trending things? How are different ways that you can sell group travel, which is really cool. And then right before this, we also had Tamika as well, who was sharing here. Let me actually open this little landing page here. We had Tamika just kind of doing an overview about why booking group travel is amazing and then how you actually do it. And then after this session, we will also have Rosalind joining us to talk about the marketing side of things. So, how you promote a group trip before, during, and even after. So we'll talk about all that. We're hitting lots of areas today, which is super exciting. The great thing is this all is being recorded. So once I'm going to do it as quick as I can, but we'll get these videos up on our YouTube channel, but also on this link right here. So I'm going to drop this link in here, right in that chat there. But this is where you can register for those and then keep those recordings and view those again and again or share them with colleagues and stuff. So super awesome there. Now, really quick, to introduce our speaker today for our session 2. So profiting from the latest group travel trends. Profiting is like the biggest thing. It's the whole thing you want to do to grow a business. So it's super exciting. And we have Jeff Gayduk here with us today, who is president of Premier Travel Media. So welcome, Jeff, and thank you for joining us here today and sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's great to be with everybody. And if I would have known that I would go after Tamika, I would have never accepted this because there's no way I can match her enthusiasm level. But I will blind you with facts. I will blind you with data. And I hope that I can share some of what we've seen at Premier Travel Media and help your audience maybe get a little bit more comfortable, understand different segments of the market. And as you mentioned, profiting from the trends that we see coming out of COVID.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm super excited. And I'll let you dive in here. And I just want to mention one thing too. If anyone listening has questions, try to use that Q&A panel. And if there's time at the end, I will start sharing some of those with Jeff as well. So definitely put your questions in there and we can try to get those answered for you too. But other than that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and Jeff, I'm going to let you take it away because I'm excited. And you're going to be fantastic. So I'm excited for this.
well, thank you very much. And I just want to confirm that everybody can see my screen here with some sprouts coming up from the concrete. So really happy to be with everybody today. My name is Jeff Gayduk. I'm the president at Premier Travel Media. And one of the unique things about what we do, we're a publishing company that serves different sectors of the marketplace, and we've got a very wide moat within the sector. We serve different areas of group travel, and what that has allowed us to do as the market has been recovering is to get a real sense from our readers, from our suppliers, from buyers, really what's happening within their business. So what I've gleaned for you today is an analysis of what we've seen in different sectors. And whether you're serving groups right now or whether you're looking for new avenues and opportunities, I think you'll find some things here that will certainly make some sense. So, why am I here? I talked to you. I'm the president of Premier Travel Media. I started this company in 1999. I bought a small senior group travel magazine that was not flourishing, took that over. That was my foray into publishing. And since that point, we've grown mostly organically, developing new market sectors as the industry has expanded, a little bit of acquisition through that process as well. Right now, you can see here we publish Leisure Group Travel Magazine, Sports Planning Guide, Student Travel Planning Guide, Destination Film, Destination Reunions, Inbound Insider, and Destination EXP. So all these are different brands under the Premier Travel Media portfolio. They all serve a unique audience. They're digital, primarily newsletters, web, social. Most of them, some of them have print components as well, but the key within each of these is that the content and the buyer journey is always a little bit unique. So I'm going to dip into most of these today in going through our presentation. So I mentioned I started Premier back in 1999. Before that, I actually have roots pretty deep in the travel advisor, travel agent community. I was a business development manager for Premier Cruise Line. If you all remember the big red boat, if you've been around for a little while back in the day. I also worked at Mast for a period of time, which was at that point, we called it Midwest Agents Selling Travel. I know they've gone through some rebrands and such through the years. So I was director of marketing and membership for Mast. And what I don't tell a lot of people, but I can share with you, is when I first started my career in travel, I was probably the worst travel agent known to mankind. I literally tried to fake myself through an Amtrak booking once. So I know what you go through, and certainly the tools have changed since I was doing that process, but I've been on the front lines of the travel advisor community. So one other thing, and you can see my background here as well, not to give a big pitch, but I do have a big box of these back in the office. So I'm the author of a book called Traveling Tribes. This was an idea that honestly had been percolating for years within our organization, and specifically me. And what it came down to were two things. First of all, many group organizers that I would encounter, whether these were interviews, whether these were people you would meet at trade shows or new subscriptions that would come in, they had a common denominator, which is they kind of came into the industry by accident. You know, they were in the right place at the right time. There was a confluence of circumstances that led them to leading groups. They were, you know, sitting at the front desk of the bank when they decided they wanted to start running travel programs. And what I realized is we can't operate a group travel industry based on happenstance and in the right circumstances at the right time. So I started putting ideas together of sort of how people have got into this industry and how they started working groups and how the industry operates. So, you know, like probably you with your ideas, you've got, you know, note files and different stickies all over the place. Then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, we found ourselves with a lot of time on our hands that we hadn't had before. So really buckled down during COVID, got the book out the door. And honestly, I look at this as my give back. My entire career has been spent in group travel. And what I've poured into here is the prescription of walking people through sort of how the industry operates, how to work with advisors. This is how cruise lines work. This is how destinations work. Here's the type of people that have been successful in organizing groups. And, you know, here's a pathway for you. So if you're an expert in the business, it's not necessarily for you. But what it's really designed to do is introduce more people to the concept, which sort of widens that funnel for all of us here. So give you an idea there. So Stephanie, we doing okay here? Everything sounding good?
Yes, everything's great.
Perfect. Okay, so let me get on to the meat actually of the presentation. So I want to start this saying, if you're confused about group business, you're certainly not alone, because hotels are as well. We pull data from a variety of different sources. One here is a North Star Media Group survey. They talked to 200 hoteliers. This is a recent survey they did. 22% of the respondents in this survey said that lack of group demand is a huge challenge for them right now. They're just not seeing group business. That same survey reported 25% said that strong group demand is what's driving their hotel business. So I don't know if it's based on what side of the street you're on, what part of the country you're on, but Hotels overall, very uneven recovery. Some of them are doing quite well with groups, others are struggling. So if you're on the struggling side, you're not alone. We're here to solve that. We're here to give you some ideas. If you're on the good side, we're here to give you some ideas to propel your business forward. So what I'm going to talk you through here is a variety of different markets that we serve and what we're seeing on the front lines. I'm going to start this by talking about a recent survey that was commissioned by NTA, or formerly National Tour Association, really that association group of companies that deal primarily with group travel. So NTA just recently released a survey of their operator members and talking about how they're seeing business recover. So they benchmarked it off of 2022. So spring 2023 survey benchmark off of 2022, and nearly 2/3 of operators said that their business, their domestic business, so they're obviously all domestic operators, but they're domestic tours, so not going overseas, the sort of the Alaska trips, California, things like that. 63% said that their business was up over last year. That's good, because 2022 was the big recovery year. Similar majority, 65%, said that their business to overseas destinations is better than it was last year. So another very positive sign. We're seeing the arrows going in the right direction. As these tides are rising, they also, because groups, especially preformed groups, tend to book very, very far out in advance. They're seeing strong numbers even going into 2024. So that bar is continuing to rise. 54% said their North American business was going to be stronger next year, and 63% said it was going to be stronger internationally. So really good signs there from that sort of baseline market of tour operators. We like that. Some other things that every group obviously is different. Some groups travel with 150, some groups travel with 15. It's just based on the organization and the group type. What NTA is seeing, by and large, average group size is around 30. And I would say that's been pretty consistent over the years. 44% said that their group sizes are a little bit small since COVID, but at the same time, 42% said it's the same. So we haven't seen a considerable drop there. One thing that we've noticed aside from this survey is sort of the growth of these sort of micro groups, which we knew based on the book I wrote, The Tribe. So small groups kind of getting together. Those groups are designed to be small. They're not designed to travel with 40 or 50 people. They're designed to be 8, 10, 12, 15 people. That's a really nice sweet spot for different experiences and such, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that traditional group size really holding steady across the board. 14% said their average group size has grown. So I think we're very stable in that market. So kind of switching gears from that initial survey, I wanted to talk about the traditional, what we call the leisure group travel marketplace. I'm going to break down some of the things that we're seeing here and then also help you capitalize on some trends that are in the marketplace. So our primary audience for this leisure group travel market is what we would call your 65 plus age, the people that are retired or semi-retired, have a little bit more time and disposable income. And the real positive that we see in this marketplace is that it's a fast growing sector. Literally 10,000 people a day are turning 65 in the United States. Okay, that's a phenomenal number. And, if we look at our sort of average age of our group traveler, it might trend a little bit older than 65. So let's say our 65-year-olds aren't quite ready to hop on a group tour at this moment. We're also living longer. We're also living healthier longer. So as we age, group travel becomes a better option for us. Maybe we have some medical issues, or maybe there's an issue with a spouse who's no longer able to travel. So it certainly opens up the opportunity for group travel. Very positives, and these numbers are going to continue. That group, that 65 age plus group, has more discretionary time, more disposable income than other generations. So we're hitting the right markets there. And as I certainly don't need to tell any of you, travel is very messy right now. So if you can develop a package for me, you can put it all together. I get to show up at the airport. You've got my hotels taken care of, attractions pre-booked, some meals involved in that process. Great sightseeing tour guide. I don't have to deal with all the rigmarole of travel. That's certainly a benefit, and more people are saying, sign me up for that. Some of the negatives, and again, this isn't news to you if you're on the front lines of the advisor community, travel prices are pretty crazy right now. Airfares are crazy, hotels are crazy. So that's influencing where group price isn't coming in. In fact, there are some issues, like, for example, if you're prepackaging restaurants in with groups, restaurants, not only are travel prices crazy, but it's hard to get staff. So dropping 30 people into a restaurant on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, they may not have the cook staff available. They may not have the wait staff available. So what we're hearing is some pushback from operators saying that, geez, we can't even get groups into some of these places because they don't have the staffing to do that. So that's a bit of a negative draw. We hope that will even out over a period of time, but it's just a condition of what a lot of people are faced with. The other thing that really happened over COVID is, if you rely on any sort of organized group transportation, not only are prices crazy, but you're also finding lack of companies to work with. Literally 40% of the motor coach companies in the United States of America went out of business during COVID. They were really caught in a difficult position. Because that's such a high capital expenditure. Motor coaches today, brand new, out the door, easily $500,000. And if y'all remember, we were not traveling in groups for a very long period of time. Those companies, by and large, did not benefit by COVID grants like airlines did and things like that. And they were family run, sometimes generational businesses. So we saw a significant drop in inventory there. And now we've got a great demand. So finding coaches, and also getting them at decent prices, that's a challenge. Again, we hope that's going to even out over a period of time, but that it really is what it is. And then consumers increasingly expect that it's going to be a seamlessly book experience. Well, I went to you to handle this for me. You said everything was going to be fine. So consumer demands are here, expectations are here, but sometimes the delivery of the travel product isn't, what we hope, because of a number of different factors. Okay. So our pulse on the market, and this is from working with our editors, this is from reader surveys that we're doing, and also seeing book orders come in, seeing new subscriptions come in, sort of where they're coming from, what type of folks are here. What we're seeing coming out of COVID is organizations, and we'll call them nonprofits. They're not for-profit companies. Nonprofits, community organizations are increasingly looking at travel as an outreach to their community. I'll give you a great example. I live in the Chicago suburbs. We have a great park district system within our town. And I was in the community center a few weeks ago, and lo and behold, I see a flyer for an international trip to Iceland being sponsored by my park district. The trip was not organized by the park district because they're good at setting up free gym time and those sort of things and dance classes and such. But what they're trying to do is get people more active, get them outdoor, and they will partner with travel advisors. They will partner with tour operators to create these type of experiences for members of the community. That trip was out there, and then they also had another a weekend trip to sort of Michigan wine country, which is a nice little short drive away from us. So there's an opportunity within that, if you have that sort of a setting within your community or like organizations. It could be a theater group, it could be a hospital auxiliary that is looking to use travel. The other thing that's happening in the market is group travel has always been a very heavy offline process. Okay. Phone calls, faxes, spreadsheets. And what we've seen is over the last couple of years is technology has really taken hold here. I think, Trav, if I could speak a little bit about this and some of the tools that you folks offer, and certainly being one of the stalwarts of this, is that there's now easier ways to plan and organize group trips than having to do every single process manually. So organizations that, first and foremost, Travify, great service. We Travel is another service that some advisors use as sort of a marketing platform for their group trips. You can create websites and take bookings and things like that. Reposit is a relatively new organization that is sort of data chronicling all different types of vendors and services. So if you're going to a certain area, you can look at group restaurant prices and group admission prices and not have to deal with all those vendors individually. Group Collect is exactly how it sounds. It's a payment gateway where you're not the credit card merchant, right? You're typically relying upon whomever the operator that you're working with, or it's a cruise line. But as you start packaging groups together, you become sort of the vendor. You can process payments and waivers and such through Group Collect. And then Group Travel Odyssey is sort of an all-in-one platform. So everything is a little bit different within there. So if you are, whether you're currently organizing groups or looking for new tools, there's a lot of help on the way, so you don't have to do that entire process manually going forward. Okay, so what do we see that's hot in the market? A lot of regional travel, a lot of weekend travel. I mentioned the wine country trip that's being organized by my park district. There's a number of opportunities within that with different community groups, different niche groups, anything that incorporates unique experiences that frankly, individual consumers can't do. So being able to package things together, create something that is memorable, that people can brag about, whether it's on their social media channel or whether it's back home when they're with their friends, that sort of bucket list item. It doesn't have to be crazy, rock climbing or rappelling, but, it could just anything private, anything that has a degree of exclusivity. Also, certainly if you're planning groups, flexibility in itineraries, choices and options. Every the typical going back 10 years ago, every sort of minute was planned out of a group trip. Now there's a lot of flexibility built in. We're going to go into a city, we're going to do a sightseeing tour, we're going to have a lunch, and then we're going to give you the afternoon. You might want to do this, you might want to do that. So being able to build that in the itinerary, and that's just simply recognizing that no two people are exactly alike. So providing that certainly gives people an opportunity to participate in group activities, but then also feel like they're not missing things if they want to go off on their own. I mentioned a little bit earlier, these authentic group experiences. Cruising has made a really solid comeback in the group marketplace. Honestly, we were talking about this yesterday in the office, going back to the early days of COVID when we saw that, I think that was a Princess ship that was sort of floating out in the San Francisco harbor. We're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen with cruising? Very elastic rebound there. The ocean liners obviously have done well. Now there's somewhat of a capacity reduction in that's causing some of this, but European river cruises, Great Lakes river cruises, really hot. New ports that are being developed, unique little tours that are being developed. So, and cruising is just a perfect environment for groups because you've got your together time and you've got your individual time as you're going through. So really, really popular. And then we've seen on an outbound side is interest in Europe certainly outstrips the capacity right now. Last year, 22 million passports were processed in the United States. It's up 30% this year. And if you've got clients that are trying to get to Europe this summer or really anywhere this summer that requires a passport, you're probably dealing with some very nervous folks that are waiting for answers and waiting in long lines. So there's a bit of a backlog in that process, but it's really because we've got so many that are coming in through the system. So keys to being competitive in the group market. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, look for those community groups within your area. I think that local is a great opportunity for you to make connections, whether it's a theater, a fitness yoga group. I talked to another organization that they plan Costa Rica spa getaways, and they work with yoga studios, fitness studios. They'll either stay in a resort or they'll rent a beach house, and they'll bring in their own food. They'll bring in yoga instructors, and that's a great little small group, typically women's only adventure. Sport clubs, restaurants, breweries, wineries. You've got all these in your local community, and for them to be able to associate their brand with a travel experience, maybe they're in it for the free trip, maybe they're in it for the branding, but typically they're in it for the community aspect of growing what they do and using something that really everybody loves to do, which is travel, to further their brand endeavor. And then the other thing I recommend outside of your local community is whatever you are passionate about. Maybe you're a golfer, maybe you love to play pickleball, maybe you love cards, but whatever you're passionate about, there's a community around that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a local community, because obviously we can market ourselves across the world through a variety of technological tools. So if you're passionate about something, there's a group travel opportunity there. There's a membership organization, there's a Facebook community, and there's an opportunity for you to package that together. And, to me, that's really where you get into the essence of the leisure group travel market, is being able to not only experience a destination, but experience it with people that you share a common bond and interest with. And if you can get into that, that's a really sweet niche within the travel community. Okay, Stephanie, we doing okay on time and such?
Oh, yes, it's perfect. Love all this stuff.
Perfect. Okay, so let's move along and talk about the student market. Now, student market, well, one of two sectors of the industry that were really crushed by COVID. Obviously, if you've got school-age kids or grandkids, you know that they were not going to school for a period of time. So if you're not going to school, you're certainly not participating in student travel. And there was a lot of negatives associated with student travel. Of course, COVID hit in the spring of 2020. That's when the big student travel season is underway. Probably 80% of student travel happens between April and May of each year. So that entire year got wiped out, and it really just decimated the industry. The positive news is that rebuilding is underway. We're seeing that school trips are coming back in force. However, the landscape is a little bit different than it was before. A lot more local trips than we had had. Europe is not a huge destination, number one, from the cost standpoint. And then there's some schools that are a little bit skittish, and I'll get through that in a little bit. So really kind of looking at more local trips, day trips, short overnight trips, versus doing the traditional New York City or, Disney World sort of getaway. The cool thing I think about the student market is it's what we call a renewable resource. Every year there's a new graduating class that comes through. There's an 8th grade class, there's a new band group that comes through. Doesn't matter what happens, there's always going to be a new student travel market. So it's going to continue to feed you new travelers. And then I think the lesson that we learned through this from a school perspective is that the importance of in-person. Zoom school worked for a period of time because that's what we felt that we had to do. But these sort of in-person experiences have really been amplified, and there's no better way to explain a subject matter and to get that light bulb going off in a child's head is to actually show them what you're studying in history class, or to explain to them via a factory tour how these STEM principles work. You can do it with a teacher in front of the class. That's certainly way better than Zoom. But that in-person experience is really proven to be invaluable. Some of the negative draws is that we've lost a lot of teachers. Okay, so between February 2020 and May 2022, we've lost over 300,000 teachers and staff within school districts. That's just unbelievable. Now, I tried to have a positive light on that, saying that we're backfilling that with new teachers, with new administrators. They're younger, they have different ideas on how to do things, and they should be more open to travel, but we've got to acclimate them towards the process. So our organization has put a lot into the market as far as educational resources, how-to, planning, tips, things along those lines, knowing that we're really working through an entirely new generation of teachers to deal with. School boards in some circumstances are very skittish. There were monies lost over COVID that were not recovered. The school district typically picked up the bill for that, and getting them to reconsider travel again, because many of these do need to be approved. You can't, as a teacher, just say, we're going to go to Orlando in 2 months. It all has to go through an approval process. So getting that decision made through a school board can be difficult depending on where you're located. And we keep hearing this R word, right? Depending on what time you open up your iPhone, economy's doing good, economy's doing bad. The issue in the school market is that they look at things as everybody needs to be treated equally. And while, there are certain members in your community who may be more affluent and they can afford to travel whenever, they want to make sure if they're putting an opportunity out, it's available for, all income levels. So if they start to see issues with economic pressure, people losing their jobs, school travel tends to suffer from a widespread basis, just because they don't want to feel as though people are being left out of the process. So we just finished our annual, we published in spring, our annual student travel planning guide, which is a resource for teachers, gives them ideas on not only where to go, but again, a lot of these educational type resources. I've got a quote here from our editor. She did a panel with leading student tour operators, and by and large, it's looking good. There's companies that specialize specifically in the student sector. We pulled them in for a discussion. They talked about their business, where it was going. So the consensus, she said, was very positive. One operator said 2023 looks to be one of their best years. Some of the challenges, of course, cost of goods, right? We talked about that a little bit with the leisure market, services, transportation, but overall, we're going in the right direction with student. And then her also final comment was these large operators expect that by 2024, they're going to be fully recovered in the market. So some of the developments that we've seen through this research and also talking to readers, one is that we're moving away from these sort of large group class trips, like everybody's going to this destination, and it's becoming more of a purpose base based on educational curriculum. Teachers will bite on travel if there is a way to support the curriculum that they're teaching within their class, because it's going to help them. There's also a big emphasis on test scores and making sure that students are hitting certain marks. So comprehending the subject matter versus just sort of reciting it from a textbook is very important. And, you folks have been on fam trips before, right? Seeing a hotel is a lot different than reading about it. Okay, so the same exact situation is going to happen with student travel. Spring break with a conscience. Okay, I grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida. Spring break today is not like it was back when I was growing up. So, you'll see spring break trips, but there's a volunteerism opportunity within that. There's a community aspect to it. It's not just go to the beach and, let's drink until we can't stand up straight anymore. So those type of things are definitely sort of taking away from that traditional rowdiness that has happened during that time period. And I think the big takeaway here is that student trips generally are shorter than they were pre-COVID, and they're visiting smaller, less expensive cities. This is directly from student operators that we're talking with. So they're the ones, that's the truth in all this statement here, is because they're the ones that are seeing this come together. So what's hot? Okay, so we went a couple years without doing any college visits whatsoever. A lot of college campuses suspended tours. I've seen operators, travel advisors, bus companies that are organizing weekend college tours. If you live in a metropolitan area, you can go out and visit 3, 4, 5 different campuses, take kids either from one school, one district, or a variety of them, marketed to different schools, and they can get a taste for what that school is like. They can get a feel for the campus. They can be around other kids their age, and it's an opportunity for them to sort of open their eyes to what some different possibilities might be as far as college potential. You can start that as early as freshman year. Okay, that decision-making time is usually, junior get really serious. Obviously, by senior year in high school, you've got to pull the trigger on where you're going, but you want to plant those seeds early, and you can start that with as early as freshman year. The other thing about that is in lower income communities, there are federal grants available for college tours of that nature. So you can tap into that, do a little research on the back end. Anything that's STEM related. Science, technology, engineering, math. This is our workforce. Are the kids going to school today need to be proficient in these subjects if they're going to have a viable career going forward? The reality is that 1 in 5 are not prepared when they're graduating high school. So if you're having difficulty absorbing it through the curriculum, there's an opportunity here. Again, this sort of in person, let's actually see the factory, let's meet with the engineers, see what they do, see how they work, and that's gonna certainly prepare them better. And then we've always loved performance opportunities, bands, orchestras, choir groups, cheer and dance, small groups, going to competitions as a reward at the end of the year. And you can, dealing directly with the performance department, whether it's the band director, the choir director, music director. We think that's a really sweet spot in this marketplace. Not as much educational focus, but you want to try to build a little bit into that. So your key to competitiveness, we feel, is your local nature. Okay, there are some big players in this marketplace, but you being based in the community, if maybe you've got, again, kids, grandkids, friends that have children in the school district, being able to work that local relationship, because that's going to be more important than ever, we think, going out. and kind of doubling down on what I said earlier is these unique STEM opportunities. You'd be surprised at the number of corporations and organizations that will open up their doors to teach kids about what they do with safety precautions, of course, but you can do factory tours, you can do corporate tours, sort of meet with executive teams. They're more than open to that because they realize the same thing that I mentioned in the slide before, is that we need to prepare kids and we need to expose them to what we do. Okay, Stephanie, doing okay?
Sorry, I was looking for my unmute. Yes, this is perfect. There's so many good ideas. I love this.
Yeah, I rapid fire. I warned everybody I'm going to blind you with data. Okay.
Yes, that's great.
All right, so we got a few more here I want to go through. Sports events. So I'm very active in the market. Sports events, organized youth sports tournaments primarily, but also adult tournaments as well. Positives, very little pullback over COVID. Certain areas that had group restrictions in place, we're not running tournaments, but overall we saw a very elastic rebound. Outdoor sports are thriving across the board. And many people are calling this the new meetings market. It's affecting destinations very positively, really worldwide, but in large and small communities. So just very robust marketplace. Negatives, same as other sectors. The cost of travel is getting high, and in many situations, these are families traveling to these events. The son or daughter is competing, but there's also another child that's going along with mom and dad. They want to see their child compete. And as gas prices are high and food prices are high and hotel prices are high, that all affects everybody's ability to participate. So there's definitely a bit of stretching of resources. The other thing that's happening, which we don't like at all, is across the board, youth participation rates in sports are dropping. And I can actually show you a quick little survey here. This is done by the Aspen Institute. And it's a little bit of a kind of a wonky graph over here. But if you look at just that bottom one, it shows that between 2012 and 2021, so this was sort of right, on the kind of on the recovery process, we saw about a 5% drop in youth participation that stuck with sports, not just trying sports, but that stuck with sports. And, that's something that we're going to have to change. There's obviously a number of reasons why we want to keep kids active in sports, but if there's not a strong pipeline of children that are playing sports, it's going to affect the event business going forward. We know that to be a fact. Market developments that we've witnessed across the board in sports. First of all, there has been a significant investment in new sports facilities. Perhaps you've seen this in your town, your community, or it's up for some bond referendum. They are building sports facilities left and right, whether that's plowing down a field and putting up 20 soccer fields, or whether that's taking an industrial area and building a new indoor sports complex. It is an arms race right now, and there are major companies that are getting into this business that were never in before. So I would expect to see that proliferate. There's a community benefit to that, which is great, but there's some concern as well. Are we overbuilding, right? And then noticeable impact of financial impact on local events. I put a little graph here, and I don't know if you can see that on your screen, but this is a place called Hammond, Indiana. Stephanie, you might know this, just across the border from where we live. This is a LinkedIn post that she did. They did a volleyball tournament over the weekend. They had 96 teams come in, economic impact of over $504,000 for this little community on the South Shore of Chicago. So, these things are happening all over the place every weekend. What's really hot in this sector? There's been a pivot going on, which teams would typically go just to a sporting event. They would participate and go. Now they're participating in tourism activities. They're staying an extra day. They're taking in local attractions. They're eating in restaurants. We witnessed this firsthand on a trip to St. Louis. We went to the Arch, and it's probably 60% of the people, they were wearing some sort of a uniform, whether they were doing volleyball or cross country or baseball. They were out there trying to explore tourist attractions while they were in the St. Louis area. Non-traditional sports, pickleball, quadball, cornhole, it doesn't have to all have a bat and a ball, that traditional like baseball, basketball, softball. We're seeing a lot of this pick up. And again, probably in your community, you're seeing new pickleball courts going on. Within that, there's a tournament opportunity. And then also senior friendly sports. So getting back to that first slide that I talked about, where's the population growth of people that have time and money? It's an age 65 plus. These senior friendly sports competitions, really adding a tourism aspect to it, is certainly an opportunity going forward. And then the other thing is esports events. We've seen a tremendous rise in esports. Something like 83 to 87% of all high school kids participate in esports. Now there's an organized tournament around that, and whether that's in a dedicated facility for esports events, or whether that's in a theater or a convention hall, there's an opportunity within that space as well. Your key to competitiveness in this marketplace, it's really within these emerging sports. Whether you're taking a local group to participate in a pickleball tournament in Florida. Lacrosse is a really heavily growing sport across the United States right now. Started in the East, it's really working its way through different parts of the US. Within each of these sports tournaments, there's usually a local organizing committee. So similar to what we're talking about with like school districts and such, that sort of local access there. And they'll understand the tournament aspect of it, but dealing with the travel element of it, the transportation logistics, the hotels and things like that, that's where they need an expert to come in and help. A lot of clubs also sort of sponsor these types of events. And then really on more of a spectator side, getting away from the pure event, travel to and from international sporting events is back on the radar of more travelers, sort of hitting those big bucket list type items. So I would certainly keep that in mind as an opportunity as well. Okay. All right, so a couple more I want to go through with you folks. Family group travel. We've seen some really positive numbers here. I'm going to work through that. The concept of togethering for extended families getting together is not just a trend. It is something that's sort of ingrained in the philosophy, is that, we've only got so much time here together to spend. Let's use this as an opportunity to, whether that's a family reunion we're planning, whether that's some sort of a celebration vacation, that is in the DNA of more and more families. A lot of us are still catching up for lost time and making new memories and understanding that, we only have so many years in which to do that. So we've seen a robust, not just family travel movement, but that extended family as well. And sometimes that's going to extend into friends as well. Negatives, again, travel prices. You're dealing with people at different income levels. Brother Joe, who's works for a financial institution, he may be fine monetarily, but somebody else in the family may be dealing with financial struggles. So finding something that sort of fits for everybody can be a little bit of a challenge as travel prices are high. And then just the complexities of getting from point A to point B. If you're in a secondary or third market, your airfare, your airline availability of flights is less than it was the last few years. So just it's becoming more struggle. And sometimes at a certain point, someone's going to raise their hand and say, you know what, it's not worth it. We hope we don't get to that point, but it's certainly weighing on people. So a lot of good statistics about about family travel. I'm not going to read through all these, but organizations like booking.com, people are looking at multi-generational trips. So it's grandpa, along with their kids and even grandkids, typically footing the bill for that. AAA named traveling with family and friends as one of their top trends. Destination analysis. Destination analyst, one of the top motivators for travel is bonding with loved ones, making new memories. Family Travel Association, which some of you folks might know, robust demand for family travel. So just really across the board, we're seeing positive numbers from venerable organizations and survey organizations on what they see being positive in the family travel market. We have a really good expert on family travel here. Her name is Nancy Schroeder. You'll hear her speak at different conferences. She's also on the board of the Family Travel Association, and she's our lead editor, Destination Reunions. She's got a really nice quote within here. And again, kind of talking about multi-generational travel and family reunions. So we just see a lot of positive upward momentum in this sector. And I think the cool thing about this kind of working through here is that you already have these clients, okay? You might not be booking them in groups, but you're booking them on individual cruises and at resort stays. So what you can do, since you're working with people that have families and extended families, is just remind them that not only am I here to help you book your regular trips and maybe your business trips, but we can also start planning things like milestone vacation trips and family reunions and celebration vacations if there's a special event coming up soon. So just adding a little bit of a twist, and then you're going to be talking about marketing in the next session. It doesn't take a monumental shift in order to kind of get people thinking along those lines. Just really installing this family group message within your communications, whether that's social media, email, newsletters, or conversations you're having. You want to plant that seed. And if you remember my first slide, kind of seeing things grow, sometimes it's not going to mature immediately, but over a period of time, if you keep that message up and you present them with some unique ideas, if you get specials from cruise lines, resorts, destinations, operators, whoever it might be, you can hopefully turn some of that into new business opportunities. Okay, so last I wanted to talk about is international inbound travel. This isn't a market that all of our folks on the call or on the webinar will tend to, but there are some unique opportunities here. Along with student international inbound, obviously borders were shut. Probably didn't have much of an industry, did we? So it just totally shuttered by COVID. But 2022 saw a market return of about 60% from our 2019 numbers. That was positive. And surprisingly, companies that specifically serve the inbound market, inbound operators, sometimes they're called receptives or DMCs. I can't believe how they survived this, because many of them literally had no business, but we did not see a huge fall off in this sector as well. Maybe because they didn't have bus companies where you've got all this expensive inventory, but they amazingly held pretty strong. The other thing that's kind of cool is there's some new markets that are emerging, coming out. So that's new opportunities as well. Some of the negatives on international inbound travel: while the market returned to 60%, they're spending less money when they're coming here. So we don't like that. We want to see those sort of work in line. Visa wait times are just, it's oppressive in many marketplaces. Right now, if you're trying to come here from China, and I'll bring that up in a minute, it could be 12 to 13 months just to apply for a visa. And at that point, it's just a no-go. You're gonna go to another destination. So we've got to solve that as an industry if we're going to come back. China is a real big concern coming back. There's an airfare challenge. There's an airlift capacity coming through. So China was really the big spending market in the international inbound sector through 2019. Obviously, that shut down completely, but it's been very, very slow to come back. Our pulse on the market is recovery is very much country by country. So based on the relationship we have with that country, based on the visa restrictions, based on the airlift that's happening, is going to dictate how that country is recovering. Visa wait times, as I mentioned earlier, are horrendous. Airlift pricing is a challenge. Okay, so there's a lot of headwind. We're going to IPW, which is the big international inbound show this weekend. And I think, well, everybody's happy to have an industry back. We realize that it's not all rainbows and sunshine. So we're trying to work through some of this. Exchange rate also is really difficult in some areas. South America, they used to come up here and do a ton of shopping. South Americans, people coming from Brazil, the exchange rate in 2018 was 3 to 1. Now it's 5.5 to 1. So their dollar just is not going very far at all anymore. And that's something that is going to need to self-correct if we're going to see those numbers come together. So where is your opportunity? Well, what we've seen is that if you're in what I would call like a tier 2 or a tier 3 market, so not a New York or an LA or a Miami, Chicago, but a tier 2 or 3 market, you can provide authentic experience to travelers. Overseas buyers really don't know this market. It's very much of a trade market still. Okay, it's not individual consumers that are coming through and booking, complicated trips. They're typically going through channels People laugh when they go to Europe and they actually see storefront travel agencies all over the place, and they see huge magazine racks. So it's a little bit different society. But overseas buyers don't know these markets, and these major receptive companies that I talked about before, they largely ignore them. They largely go after these big tier one destination markets. So there's some opportunity here. Where that could come into would be like cultural exchange opportunities, working with your local chamber of commerce. Perhaps you have a festival or cultural event, sister cities within your area, an opportunity to bring international travelers in, have them experience that. Faith-based is another marketplace that makes some sense in the international inbound market as well. But we're optimistic towards the future, but know that we've got some headwinds as well. So that concludes my data presentation for this period of time. Stephanie, I guess we can open it up to questions, and I can certainly try to answer anything that folks have as far as what they're seeing or guide them in the right direction.
Yes, awesome. Oh, that was incredible. That was so informative, tons of ideas. Someone had mentioned it's really helpful because they already had some perceptions about the market, and you confirmed it with data and a broader experience. So thank you. You did exactly what you said. You said you're going to come in with the data. So I love it. It's great job. Very awesome. Also, someone did mention at the very beginning that Amtrak was very tricky to book. So
thank you.
That is so. Maybe it wasn't you. It's the industry. Really hard.
I wish they would have told me that 30 years ago. I wouldn't be carrying that around on my shoulder. Okay.
I know. Yeah. Now you can let it go. 30 years later. So there was just a couple questions here of these, and I'm not, maybe you can help answer these, but they're more just from a couple people who are already in the process of like working with people. Like one, so Patrick had asked, he's working right now with a local restaurant about setting up a group food and wine tour. Awesome. Super cool.
Perfect.
That sounds great. But he said, but they don't seem to have a clear idea of what they want to do. So do you have any tips on like how to get them focused?
Yeah, I like the idea of three. Here's three different packages we can put in front. Do you want to go somewhere you've been before? Do you want to go somewhere new? So if they're sort of just out there, shotgunning it, you've got to find those destinations that you think would appeal, well to that group, and start giving them options. And out of three, they'll be able to find something they like.
That's a great idea. Yeah,
I would also recommend, if they have not done this before, start on the smaller side. You don't need to do a, 18-day expedition cruise to Antarctica. Let's let that momentum build over a period of time.
That's a really good idea. And that actually kind of brings it, and that answers a little bit of the next question, actually. Annie had asked, selling so as with her building new relationships like within the community, she asked, how long should the relationship nurturing and lead time be before a trip? And how do you give them opportunities to vet you without them just taking a free trip? So just basically like just nurturing, how do you start growing that? And you kind of answered it a little bit, but what else would you recommend?
It does take time. I think that's the one thing that's going to frustrate people, is that there's few easy wins in this marketplace. It's about being present. People have to know who you are. They have to like what you do, and they have to trust that you're going to deliver a good experience for them. Certainly client endorsements help during that process. The lead time going up to that, it's whatever the buyer feels comfortable with. That could be a 3-month process. That could be a 3-year process. I think that it's going to be different. But when they need you, you need to be in the right place. So consistency in that message is, communicating, make sure that they're in your channels. If you're dropping things off when something good does happen, if you're shipping groups here, just sending a quick note. We just returned with a group from New Zealand. This is what we did. This is what we experienced. If you're interested, we can help you here. Because when the time is right for them, they'll let you know. Just be consistent with your messaging.
That's a great tip. Yeah, that's really smart, just to keep dropping in. And that's the reality of it too, is it might not be just an instant thing. It just takes time. So yeah, that's great. Really interesting question here from Greg. Asked, do you see villa and home rentals growing over the next few years, especially for families and reunions?
100%. Absolutely. Yep.
That's so cool. Another question here from Danielle is, how can I get a magazine subscription for reunions? So how do they get subscriptions?
Yeah, so all of our brands have independent websites. So, and there's a subscription form on there. So, like, for example, in the reunions market, you can go to destinationreunions.com, click on the subscribe button. You can get the newsletter, you can get the magazine through that. Each, kind of following what you see up on the screen over here, you can usually find everything through Google search. We're found pretty well. So you don't have to dig through too many pages. And each of our brands has both digital as well as print subscriptions.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
I think that was my sister who did that, by the way.
Oh, really? That's so great. Well, I love how it's like you're finding it. I love how if you follow in and you really find your niche, and you're like, okay, family travel, and there's literally publications like this. That's so cool. So love that. It's really amazing. Another question here. Well, actually, okay, this is a question that I want to ask you, because what is the one thing, and maybe you already talked about it today, what is the one trend that you're starting to see emerge that makes you the most excited?
Yeah, I would say it's the advent of these small niche oriented groups. And getting back to what I talked about earlier, is whatever you're passionate about or you understand, it's difficult to fake those relationships within the marketplace. But the people that we've talked to, the folks that run bicycle tours, they started it because they enjoyed bicycles and said, geez, I want to show other people what a great experience this could be. And those are the things that are going to help you get up in the morning and want to do really good versus, geez, I don't know anything about construction, but I've got to organize this trip for these guys that want to do this, construction tour as an example. So find what you're passionate about and what you want to serve. And there's a group travel movement around that.
Cool. That's awesome there. Love that. So another question here, last question is, because someone just asked, there was a couple questions that I think this would encompass all of it, is for those who are just now starting out and they really want to start, sending groups to different areas, whether it's for schools or anything, but maybe if you don't already have those contacts, those suppliers, what's the best way to start building and finding the right suppliers to be working with to support the travel that you're selling?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. First and foremost is find operators that you can work with, whether those operators are based here in the US, some of the name brand companies. There's also sort of this group below that that just deal specific in private groups. So they may not be household names, but they've been around for a while, that they specialize in a certain destination or a certain type of travel. So do your research through there. As you get more familiar with the process, you may want to develop your own relationships overseas with inbound operators and DMCs, and you can customize that experience a little bit more. But the first step in my mind, if you're unfamiliar, versus trying to contract hotels directly in Italy, go with an operator who already has the contracts and has vetted the hotels and has the guides there. And then, as you get more comfortable, maybe you want to customize that more or do it on your own.
Awesome. That's perfect. I love that. And again, so many great ideas. So thank you so much. I know someone asked this question because they hopped in late, but yes, we're recording the whole session, which is awesome. Oh, and there we go. Here, I'll let you share that.
Yep, and that's me. So certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me. I guarantee I'm the only Jeff Gayduk that's on LinkedIn. So it's not like Tom Smith or something like that. You could email me. Our corporate site is PTM Groups. Folks, it's really an advertising site. Not we're trying to sell you advertising, but you can hit all the different brands from there. You'll see markets, and we've got digital publications and things like that. So hopefully I sparked an idea or two with the audience today. Really enjoyed the time that we spent together, and I wish you all the most success in developing your group business.
Yes, that's awesome. And I lied. I actually have another question here for you.
Oh, okay.
Because two people asked this very similar question.
Yep.
So they were asking a question, as a travel agent, do I need another certification to book tours? So a couple of people actually asked that.
Nope, not at all.
Perfect. Boom. There we go. So now after this, just go start booking tours galore. So awesome. So thank you so much again. I'm going to share my screen really quick because we are not done yet for the day. So again, I'll have these recordings up. Just give me a little bit, maybe to the end of today, and I'll get them put up here. But in about a half an hour, I'm actually going to jump on Facebook Live. And this is perfect because Jeff was talking about this, about using systems like Travefy to really help make group business or group, your group travel side simple. And I will show you how Travefy can do that. So hop on Facebook Live in a half an hour and I will show you how. And then we'll have one more webinar session after that with marketing. So kind of putting a lot of the things together. So hopefully you have some ideas that have been sparked, like Jeff said, and then now you can start figuring out the marketing side of it. So super exciting. But thank you so much again, Jeff. This has been incredible, so helpful, so many great ideas. And thank you, everyone. And hopefully we'll get to see you again soon.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. See ya.